and welcome to the Caring View, the online health and social care platform, free to access for absolutely everybody. Before we get started, I have a huge list of things that I must get through checklist-wise, otherwise I'm not doing my job properly. So, if you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget to hit subscribe to our channel, hit that bell, you'll never miss out on a video of ours in the future. Go follow us on X and watch us live on there if you wish. You can watch us live on LinkedIn, give us a follow, Facebook and our Facebook group. And Mark, tonight, Instagram, I believe we are on. So do go head over to our Insta and watch us over there. Follow us on TikTok because we do post clips on there now. We are cool. We are down with the kids. And we do all of this and it is absolutely free. The reason this is free is because we have some fantastic sponsors. You can go to www.thecaringview.co.uk to go and find out about all of our sponsors, all of our podcast episodes, chat show episodes, and free resources. But let's give them a huge shout out. So we have Prosperwell, the UK's leading digital marketing agency, www.prosperwell.co.uk. If you remember Smooth Digital, Tea with Toby, everyone knows Toby, he's fantastic. Go and check them out. We also have CBAT, the Care Business Associate Training. Paul, oh my gosh, I've forgotten his surname and he's going to kill me. Mark, help me out.
I'm on mute. Paul Blaine.
Paul Blaine, oh my God. Babes, I'm so sorry. I love you, Paul, obviously. Sorry for that faux pas and forgetting your name. For all of your health and social care needs, go and check those out. We also have Care Show London. Hopefully you've all signed up because it is tomorrow. So go to www.careshowlondon.co.uk/TCV, get your tickets there. And we also have Attis Care by Attis Insurance Brokers, comprehensive care coverage and proactive risk management. Mark.
Impressive.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you. It's a real mouthful nowadays. I need a brew just to wet my lips after it. Without our sponsors, though, we would not be able to do any of this for you all. It pays our bills, keeps the lights on, pays for all our software. You get us absolutely free, no cost to anything that we provide. Apologies for starting late tonight. We've had some gremlins. I'm currently sat in a Premiere Inn, which is why I've got a headset on, and it looks awful, like a Cyberman from Doctor Who. But we are joined tonight by, obviously, the ever-fabulous Mark Tops. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, good evening. You okay?
I'm grand, thank you very much. How are you?
Yes, not too bad, not too bad.
I've just realised I've not put any of the banners up this evening, so I do apologise. I'm going to get those up now. And we're Daniel Casson. I mean, who doesn't want to be joined by Daniel Casson on a Tuesday evening? Daniel, how are you?
I'm very well. Really, really honoured to be here, Adam and Mark. You're two very special people. Thank you.
And that means a lot, Daniel, for coming from you. And obviously, we love working with you. And we in fact, for those who don't know Daniel, Daniel, who are you and where are you from?
Well, I'm originally from Manchester, Adam. For 12 years, I was head of business development at Jewish Care. And then I realised there was a wider world out there as technology, digital transformation and innovation were coming into care. So I went out by myself and I said, right, I'm going to get involved in this. And with NHSX coming on board, I joined Digital Social Care, and that's where I am now, running my own consultancy, Casson Consulting, encouraging innovation in social care. Not defining myself, but just saying innovation is where we're at.
Well, thank you very much for giving up your evening and joining us. So tonight we're talking about caring tomorrow, so social care in the future. And I thought what we could do is just break it down into some sections that are common talking points right now, but what we need to do to get ready for the next decade. So all the way up to 2030, which I think is quite a scary kind of thought, but actually we're not a million miles away really. But so I suppose the elephant in the room is the aging population. So we know that we don't have enough younger people coming through. We know the workforce is already depleted as it is. And I guess the question is, how do we think that aging population is going to affect social care and the services we've got? Over to either of you for your thoughts.
I think it's really interesting to look at, Mark, because, well, as we're getting older, we, you and I, and I'm a bit older than you two, are getting to a state where we're using technology so much that I expect it to be caring for me as well. I'll be able to put in things to help me grow older. And that's so I see it going. The demographic. I've had a quick look at the demographics. They're only going upwards at the moment, even though there was a slight blip during COVID in life expectancy. So we can't. We've got to do less. We've got to do more with less. How do we do that? Is a big question for me. And that's we can go into that later. Adam, just interested what you think on that one.
Yeah, I think for me, it's really, really interesting because we've got such a large aging population now, and I think sometimes we look at things very 2D and we go, oh well, we've got this population now, so obviously the population is going to get even bigger over the next X amount of years. But we fail to look at things in that sort of 3D or even 4D model. And actually, when we look at things, our population's so big because we're at that boomer sort of age range now where the war, we had all these people having children after the war. We've got this population which is growing from a period of time where we lost a lot of our population in conflict. Loads of people started having children, and actually we've got this population growth from that. When we look at the age groups nowadays, there are a lot of people out there who are putting careers before children. There are a lot of people who are aging without children. I'm aging without children. We've got a society and a community that embraces our LGBTQ brethren now and our sisters and our non-binaries. And actually that ability to be more free and to be more open is going to reduce the sort of relationships where people feel forced into those sort of normative, those hetero relationships they feel they need to have and then subsequently have children. And I've been reading a number of reports recently around Italy, India, Russia, China, where their actual populations are taking a decline because they've not had many births for a good number of months. So I think we need to look at it in that respect is, yeah, it's great that our population is like this, but actually what's our current birth rate? And in 30 years time, what's our working population going to look like? Because actually, if we're not having loads of children now, we need to be predicting how many people we're going to have as a working age in this country to meet the needs of the people who are needing care and support. So I think technology can help us with that already. I mean, I've not seen much data around the UK about it. Maybe I'm talking absolute bollocks and it doesn't actually apply to the UK, this, but there's definitely data out there from our eastern countries and our eastern continents where birth rates are dropping. Do we need to consider that over here? And I'd be interested to see how technology can actually meet those needs for us. We've spoken a lot over the last few years around virtual wards and how they can benefit people around AI and digital care planning and robots in your homes. But there's always going to be that element of needing that human touch, isn't there? So for me, it's an interesting one. We speak about the demographic of our aging population, but actually not much around what our working population is going to be like in 30 years' time. And I think those two have to go hand in hand for a solution to be even considered, if that makes sense.
I think there's one other factor that's taken into account, Mark, in that people who often with chronic disease and with different disabilities are actually living a lot longer now because we now have the greater facility to understand people's conditions. So, for example, people with Downs are living longer, more fulfilled lives, and that's an interesting factor as well to take into the demographics. So there is this I do look at digital as a digital first strategy, which you mentioned some of the countries you're looking at. I was looking at Norway recently, where there's definitely a digital first strategy to get through this issue, to overcome the demographics. And it's about empowerment of me and you empowering ourselves, but also making everything accessible. So what the technology is doing is making the world more accessible to people who were often excluded before. And that can only be a plus for our society and community. So there'll be potentially less exclusion. I mean, that's quite a controversial point, but there will be more inclusion of people in a working society that we can actually, for example, one of the issues we see is people with autism actually now being welcomed as a greater part of the workforce. So we have new resources coming on as well to actually deal with some of the demographic issues. And these are all ideas and not yet formed, but they are changing the old two-dimensional thing that you were decrying there, Adam.
I mean, listening to you talk then, Daniel, not to make this political, maybe we should have got Rishi Sunak on tonight with you talking around our sort of ability to support people with disabilities, because according to Rishi, we're just going to have everyone back in work and it's absolutely fine. Let's not let doctors sign people off sick and their workforce is fixed. Obviously,
But we're not political, are we, Adam? Or are we?
Oh,
Or are we
not at
political,
all.
Mark? I don't know.
Never.
It's
I
funny
mean, I'm
you-
just gonna. Sorry.
No, I was
just
going to say,
gonna
it's
say-
funny you said that, because I also wrote down about Rishi Sunak obviously wants people back to work, but against your comment of how actually the landscape today might look very different, you know, in 2030, in the future. Go on, Adam, sorry.
No, I've just had a quick look at the ONS, the Office for National Statistics, and I've got some data here. So the total fertility rate decreased to 1.49 children per woman in 2022 from 1.55 in 2021. So obviously that's the UK, and we are seeing a decrease in birth rates in the UK. Ironically, though, under 20s, where you would think actually women or people who are going to be childbearers, because obviously we have trans people within our society and asexual people, so I don't want to use the term women, but people who are going to have children, you'd think younger ages are now going to be more career driven. Fertility rates did not drop in the under 20 age group. Now, do with that information what we will, but we obviously have a lack of education in some areas, potentially it's poverty, potentially it's contraception poverty that we've got going on. So across women as a whole, apart from the under 20s, we are seeing that birth decline within those groups. So it's just an interesting element to think about, and how we're supporting those areas, because actually it might be that we need to have more of a focus on under 18s care rather than elderly care, because we've got a portion of the population who are having more children at a younger age and actually need more support. Are we going to see an increase of children in care over these 30 years? Because at the moment, the conversation is elderly, aging. But there's a portion of society that we're not really looking at.
I think you do make a good point there. I mean, Daniel touched on autism, and I think the stat is like 28 or 29% of people living with autism are in employment. So actually, there's still a large gap in that marketplace there. But also, there's so many more tests now when you have children, and there's also so many more medications and support available early on, if you can get the support early on, which actually then would align people to be better equipped to cope with being at work and that transition from kind of childhood into adult. And I know there's obviously a lot of focus for local authorities at the moment around what that transition looks like and getting it right based on kind of historic failings. So yeah, I think you make a very good point there. Daniel, any thoughts on that at all?
Yeah, I want to introduce one phrase here. I always say that although I work in technology and innovation the whole time, I'm actually a Luddite. And the Luddism is a really underestimated attribute, because what the Luddites in the 1800s did is they recognized that you can't stop development and innovation and new ways of working, but that it has to take into account societal changes, cultural changes that are occasioned by taking on new technology and the effect on people's lives. If I go back, and we're not political, I know that, if we look at some of the changes brought in Margaret Thatcher's time, we actually see that a lot of the changes in a cold sense, in a business sense, were deemed necessary, but they didn't take into account societal changes. What we're trying to do with Adam's 3D, even 4D approach is saying we've got this real opportunity to include more people, to bring people in, to overcome some of the demographic issues that we have. But we have to realize that's a whole change of culture, a whole way of thinking. You mentioned aging without children, Adam. And there's various parts of society, community who will age without children for whatever reason, for lots of different reasons, for choice. There might be even people living further abroad, or estranged, whatever. And one of the issues we have is that our whole society, if you access public services in the UK, we are dependent on people advocating for you, be that health, education, care. If you don't have someone advocating for you, you can easily get lost in the system.
Yeah.
And that's, I've realized that through many iterations of working with the public sector. So therefore, we have to try and equalize that. And this is a real opportunity to do that by empowering people to take as much control as they can of their own lives. Now, that's a very politically loaded question there, people taking control of their own lives. I'm trying to be a bit more subtle about it, but I can't quite find the words at the moment.
No, I'm with you, and I don't think there's any subtlety needed in this because it's a very difficult thing to hear. So, I mean, I say things quite a lot of the time that I think people do find difficult to hear, and it's victim mentality and personal responsibility. And those are really tough things to hear, but actually, we are the diviners of our own paths. And we all go through stuff in our lives which is horrendous, and it's all relative. What I go through is different to what someone else goes through, but it's equally important to both of us because it happens to us. Just because someone else is going through something different to you doesn't make your experience any less validated, any less important. What matters, though, is how we use that to empower ourselves moving forwards. Do we sit there and go, actually, the whole world's against me and I can't do anything about this now? Or do we go, actually, I'm going to use this to empower myself? And that's not a possibility for everyone. And this isn't a one-size-fits-all model. There are people out there with severe mental health issues who won't be able to have that thought process, who won't be able to take that sort of path, and those are the people we really need to support. But actually, we need to be focusing on resiliency with a lot of the population and teaching that resiliency of how to face these issues and how to face these problems. It is tough to hear, Daniel, it really is, but actually we need to take some personal responsibility. I think part of the problem we have in society, and we're talking about the demographics, just while we're still on this topic, is we are such a diverse country, and it's amazing. The wonder of our country is our colour. We are colourful, like the rainbow flag. We are from black to white. We are all the colours in between, and it's incredible, and it's a wonderful place to be. But I do tend to find that a lot of our society wastes a lot of energy arguing the toss on differences rather than accepting and moving forwards. And so much in the news now is hate and propaganda against different minorities of all sorts. And it's a shame because all of that energy that we're putting into that hate, that we're putting into that lack of acceptance and that inability to want to change society for a better, is also inhibiting our growth as a community to then support each other moving forwards. You know, how many times have we heard people going, oh, I couldn't understand the word that doctor was saying because they're foreign and they're not British, or, you know, I couldn't understand what they were saying, or, oh God, I don't want them coming into my house because they scare me.
People who want care agencies accepting that people can choose the color, can try to find the color of the person caring for them, which I've seen.
Exactly. And there's all of that. And then they'll go, oh, but it's taken me ages to go to the doctors because they've never had an appointment, or it's taken me ages to find a care agency. And we've got to look at those demographics and use the diversity of our country to an advantage, but also support those those diverse populations into being able to deliver the best that they can, but also feel supported. So are we providing those English lessons? Are we providing cultural support? Are we providing, community support for these people? Are we signposting them to areas of the country that actually is beneficial for them? But are we also supporting and educating our current team and our current customer base, for want of a better phrase, to go, these are the different cultures that are out there. This is what people look like, and this is how people sound, and this is what people's love looks like in different areas of the country, and this is what gender means to some people, this is what sex means to some people. Without that education side of things, what appears to be forcing our approach to society and our workforce is very much that. It's a case of, this is our workforce and we don't care whether you understand it or not. It's what's happening. We need to do a lot of education and a lot of support. Otherwise, the demographic that we've got coming in the country to support the health and social care system are not going to be supported, and we are going to struggle. I also want to just give a quick shout out as well to white non-UK nationals, because we think of racism a lot of the time in our demographics, and I'm trying to keep us on topic slightly, but it's something I need to bring up. We think of racism a lot of the time with people of colour, which a lot of the time, that is racism. But post-Brexit, and everything that's going on in the Eastern countries at this moment in time, there is a lot of racism to non-UK white individuals as well. So people from European countries who come to the UK for work suffer racism, and it goes under the radar and it goes unchecked because it's not what your normal racism looks like. And we need to do a lot more education around that as well. You know, these wonderful people coming from the continent to support us in social care are doing so because, yes, they want a job, yes, they want a better country to live in, but also the majority of them are really great carers. Just like the UK, you're never going to get 100% great carers from international lands. You're never going to get 100% great carers from the UK land. But actually, we need to be able to support them. So it's just a mindset for anyone who is listening and watching tonight and thinking, actually, we need to be diverse in our workforce more and we need to support people more. Think of the non-white UK nationals as well and how we can support those. Yeah, Paul Ashmore's just come into the conversation and said, yes, white Africans too. You know, you even see it about white Jamaicans, people from Jamaica who are white, who are genuinely descendants in Jamaica now, get called out for black accent or faking for the fact that they're white speaking like a Jamaican. And I'm not trying to make it I'm not trying to diminish or invalidate anyone else's experiences. All I'm trying to say is the picture is huge and holistic, and we need to work on it holistically and supporting everybody.
No, definitely. I think we all play a part in that piece as well. I think social media has made it very easy to jump on the bandwagon with an awareness day or an awareness week, but it's actually what the organisation, or as us ourselves, if we're posting it as individuals, what do we actually do? And I think there are so many awareness days, which is great, but I think quite often it's just for a social media post. I think the organisation probably doesn't actually do anything with it, and I think we do see it with LGBT, they put the pride flag up, and then at the end of the week or the month, you know, it's disappeared. But I often think, how much within the organisation do they do awareness here, and who's actually fronting it? And I think we probably all do. We probably all put something up around Eid and put it on our social medias and share an image. But actually, how many of us really truly understand what it is and, you know, that tradition behind it? So I think we all play a part in it. Daniel, did you want to come in? Sorry.
It's really interesting because I want to say here, there is something, a facet of how we work in social care, which can actually feed very much into this. I'll name drop a few people, some of my mentors. The guy I worked under at Jewish Care, a guy called Neil Taylor, drummed into me that if we make things accessible for everybody, it's better for you and for me and for the whole of society. Now, that can be people with disabilities, with unseen disabilities, from different ethnic backgrounds, whatever. So it actually encompasses all those for want of a better phrase, non-norms, that it makes society more open. And the strength of the UK, and I've lived in various places outside the UK, the strength of the UK, and this, my ancestors came to the UK in the late 1800s. I'm from Eastern Europe, I'm Jewish from Eastern Europe, is they were accepted and actually built into society, a stronger society. And that's what makes Britain, as well as taking its responsibility as a former colonial power, we also have the power to channel a lot of these new ways of thinking to make a better society and community. And I recently ran a conference, which was really interesting, where we had someone from and I'll get another name drop, to the Point of Care Foundation, where they ran something called a Schwartz Round, which is simply, we had 150 people in the room and people telling their stories of why they are working in care. And honestly, we had 150 people silent for half an hour, for 45 minutes, as people listened. And what was interesting, people gave their different stories. It didn't stop them, funnily enough, from wanting to be successful or wanting to even make money, but it was realizing that everyone has a story of why they're here. Now, if we can realize that story, it makes us more powerful. That's why apps like, there's one called Hear Me Now, where people can make their voices be heard. So we do have the technology now to help people's voices be heard from whatever part of society or whatever identity they choose to access, can make their voices heard as part of society, community. Are we thinking of fairyland, or is this actually going to happen, do you think? Or are we
I think we're going to
aspirational?
Do full circle. I think at the moment we're in silo, and I like talk to my friends that, I mean, I live in a village, so everybody knows everybody. But if your neighbour needs something, you help. I mean, I'm surrounded by a lot of older people, and maybe it's because I work in social care, but I'll offer to like cut their grass or do whatever needs doing. But I don't think when I talk to a lot of my friends that live in towns they don't know who their neighbours are. Even if they live in a block of flats, they don't know who the neighbour is. And I do think we've got to a point in society where we're so wrapped up in ourselves and technology and being on our devices that we don't it's not like years ago where you would talk over the fence to your neighbour, or, you know, I don't know. I think society as a whole has changed, but I think that it'll eventually get back there. Whether it gets back there before 2030 or not, I don't know. But I do think as a whole, it will change again. I mean, they do say everything does a full circle, don't they?
It's funny because I almost balk at that, Mark, because I live in London. I live 4 or 5 miles outside the centre of London, and I have never lived in a closer community than I live in now. Literally over the garden wall. I remember that when COVID, the first day of COVID, playing badminton over the garden wall with the with the neighbours, everyone looking out for each other. So in a way, and that a lot of that is engendered by the WhatsApp groups that actually bring people into physical contact as well. So I don't quite agree with that stereotyping, actually, Mark. I think there's nuances in there.
Oh yeah, it's not going to be the same up and down everywhere, but I think as a whole.
So I'm a little on the fence with this, because part of me would say, well, actually, is there a sort of privilege in the country to be able to have the time to spend with your neighbours and to be able to do that? But I don't think that's the case, because I have friendships and relationships and acquaintances with people who are non-working families in non-working communities who have a really strong sort of connection and that sort of growth, but lack other areas of sort of education to bring their children up in a way that actually is going to benefit them long term. And it's hard to see, and it is difficult to see. I don't know about society as a whole, though, about whether we are going to survive through this, and I'm quite pessimistic on this, and my partner and I talk about this quite a lot. And I think there has to be a point in society where either there's a point of no return or there's a collective awakening. And there is an awakening going on within society at this moment in time around health, around community, around love, around acceptance. We're seeing a lot more people realize that drinking is not good for you and are going sober. I'm one of them. And that sort of teetotal culture is growing to a point where the drink industry is struggling to keep up. Same with smoking, same with moving back onto natural fats. So there is this awakening going on. I just don't know whether it's going fast enough. And I'll tell you for why. So I was in Morrison's last night, did a bit of shopping, and within 5 seconds, I saw 2 people act in a way that actually was embarrassing for society. So one person was at the self-checkout and was screaming at the cashier to come over and sort her shopping out because she was in a rush. And it's kind of like, well, this person's working and you can see she's working, but you have that little respect for this person doing a job. You see them as a tool rather than a person. And that was upsetting to see. And then there was 2 girls walking past the actual part where you do your self-checkout, and there was a person with a disability reversing on their accessibility vehicle. The girl was on her phone, literally a phone zombie, walking like that, and walked into the back of this wheelchair and then scoffed at them. And it was a case of, well, actually, if you weren't so self-absorbed and so within your own ability to not look at the world around you, you wouldn't have bumped into this person. It's not that person's fault. Maybe that person should have looked in the mirror. Maybe it's a bit of both. But as a society, we are becoming so self-involved that I don't know whether we are going to. And I'm a Trekkie. I'm a nerd. I'm like the biggest geek going. I'm like Gene Roddenberry. Give me Utopia. I don't believe in money. I don't think we should have a financial system in this world. We created this idea of money. People say energy costs, food costs. No, it doesn't. We've assigned a cost and a value to it. We are making these things cost. Actually, money doesn't exist. Money is a man-made concept, which is absolutely ridiculous. It does not come from nature like food does. It does not come from nature like energy does. We have assigned a value to things. I'm one of these people that probably 30 years ago or 40 years ago would have been locked up and been called a commie.
What about borders? What about borders between countries, Adam?
No. Oh, to quote Pocahontas, I'm sorry, but to quote Pocahontas, you think
Good
you
film.
own whatever land you land on. And that is so true for the human race. We land on a land and go, oh, we own this land. No, you don't. The world is something. It's a resource. It is a life giver to us, the planet. And we don't see it as that. And it is so heartbreaking. And I really want us as a society to get there. I just don't think we're going to achieve that in the next 1-2 centuries.
I do think
let
it's a
alone
shame.
30 years.
Yeah. I do think it's a shame that off the back of COVID, that didn't remain. I think that we've all gone back to doing things in silo. I'm very conscious of time and other areas. One thing I did want to touch on, though, was around if there's any policies either of you think could be introduced, should be introduced. The one I wrote down, which is obviously in the forefront of the media right now, is around assisted dying. Because I think we often think around the aging population, but there's also this growing need for assisted dying and to match other countries. And I think it throws a very interesting point of actually we might be in an aging population, but if the majority of those aging population do choose to die peacefully in a way that they want to die, actually will we have that issue in 2030 or beyond? But I don't know if there's any policies or any thoughts on that.
I'm interested in universal income. Some experiments in Finland in universal income, so people don't have the everyday. The amount of creativity that's lost because people are having to scrape and scrounge and to devote themselves to actually keeping their head above water. We lose so much creativity in society. If actually people were paid, I have this strange one that sometimes I believe some charitable institutions that I actually want to give to, I sometimes refrain myself because I think they should be funded by society. I mean, a classic being the military and help for heroes. Now, they do some great stuff. Now, this is pretty controversial, so I'm very wary of this. But actually, that's a role that we as a society, as a community, should be taking, not as a voluntary choice. So I think there should be something in there about, if I want to see culture change, it's about, legislative culture change, that universal academy of people having a right to actually pay more tax if they want to. You can't pay more tax in this country if you want to.
I don't want to pay more tax. I want to pay less tax.
That's the thing. You're so like me. But I want to pay more tax and no charity.
Yeah, so I do think that. Oh, go on, Adam. Go on.
No. You go first.
Oh no, I was just going to say, when I think about tax and bits and pieces, is that we have a large number of people that don't use NHS but use private but pay tax for the NHS. But actually, could we use that pot of money and they pay for something else? I think whatever we do, it's going to have to be something that is very different than what we currently do, because we know the current model doesn't work. And I think when I look at social media, the amount of people, when like Rishi did his back to work, the amount of people that are saying, but it doesn't pay to go back to work, so good luck in. I think we're in that society where people truly believe that not working gives you, and it probably does give you a lot better work-life balance, but also a better quality of life. And I think we are in that mindset. So I do think something is going to have to, what that something looks like, I don't know. But Adam, go on.
The assisted dying you were talking there is all about someone being in control of their own destiny. So if that's a greater question, that a lot of our destiny is taken out of our hands, maybe. Is there anything we can do to actually, I talked about empowering people, but you're also stuck on, we're also stuck on dangerous, controversial political ground as well. None of these decisions is apolitical.
So, again, right, so first things first, universal income, totally love the idea of that. I would like to see it go one further and actually it be melded with a sort of trade-based society view. I'd love them to build a town somewhere with a school, a surgery, shops, nursing homes, nurseries, all of that. And actually everyone in that society contributes. They contribute equally, they provide equally, they grow their own foods, they do what they can do, and actually to see how well that would work, because we've got to think environmental sustainability. And is it sustainable to import food from all over the country? No, it's bloody not. Is it right in Christmas we've all got pineapples on our tables and avocados, because once upon a day that was a flex, wasn't it? You'd bring the pineapple out at a dinner party and go, oh, look how rich we are, we've got a pineapple. I mean, it's not a thing anymore. It's just normal, and we're importing all this food. I would love us to really try and play down the idea of money in society. I know that's never going to happen. There's always people that are going to want more. There's always people that are going to abuse that system. I totally get that. Cough, cough, royal family. I totally understand it. I think there needs to be that focus and that shift towards it. When it comes to assisted dying, I think we're too quick to apply our Western norm and our Western status quo to that, because, yeah, England's been around for gosh knows how long, but America's 500 years max, isn't it, when you think about it? We went over there and eradicated the natives in America and lost a lot of their culture.
We gave them a lot, like disease as well.
Oh yeah, it's like, oh, thanks for bringing us to your land. Here's smallpox. Have fun. We did a lot of damage around around the world. But when you look at other cultures and other religions that are eons older than what we are, eons older than what Christianity is, assisted dying isn't odd. It's not a negative thing. Choosing to die on your own terms is actually quite an empowering thing to do.
Exactly.
And I think we're so afraid as a society to go, oh, but we can't do because of X, Y, and Z, because of hell, because of this. And I'm not discounting religion. People can be religious, and I'm not saying that that's not the case. What we can't do is let religion rule a decision that affects countless others that don't apply to that religion. And it comes down to choice, doesn't it? So, yes, it may be seen as controversial, but I only think it's controversial because of our Western norms. I think in a lot of other societies and religions, it's actually a lot more accepted to choose death on your own terms.
Again, I bring it really, so much of what I focus on is in my bubble on social care, and it doesn't relate to what you were saying there, because I'm trying to find what social care is, and I've come to one definition which I often try and use, that social care is about helping people, about empowering people to live as independently as possible according to their own situation and context. Now that, if you extrapolate from that into society, the assisted dying, the universal income, it actually fits into that. Are we working towards that, about helping people, empowering people to live as independently as possible? Is that the goal of what we're all doing here? So social care, this microcosm, is actually, for me, what we should maybe be heading for in society and community. Or is that giving us too big a role?
No, not at all. I mean, look at mental health. We say mental health, and what's the first thing that comes into your mind? Mark, when I say mental health, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
That we don't do enough for it.
Daniel?
That is generally the first thing that comes into my mind. But I do think there's a lot of talk about it, but people don't fully understand it. I think we then talk about well-being, we kind of move it on, don't we? But
Daniel, what's the first thing that comes to mind when I say mental health?
You, me, and Mark, we all have mental health issues.
This is it, and it's not necessarily issues. We talk around mental health as this thing where it's depression, anxiety, which is a part of mental health. That's poor mental health. I'm having a really good day. I've got good mental health. I'm happy. When my dad died, I went through a grieving period of almost 2 years. I had really bad mental health. Actually, mental health is something that applies to everyone. And I think we need to look at that with social care. So I don't think it's too demanding. I don't think it's too much of an ask of society to go, if you live in a society, you are part of social care. You receive social care and you give social care. Social care is a universal thing that applies to everybody, whether you like it or not. You are part of social care, receiving and giving every single day. Every single day, you have some part of social care. And I think the biggest ask and the impossible ask is defining it into one sentence or to a paragraph. And actually, it's more of a movement. It's more of an idea, isn't it? Social care. It's more of a purpose. It's more of a thing like mental health. You can't decide or define mental health in one single sentence, apart from everyone's got mental health. And that's the closest you could probably get to defining it. So when it's to do with social care, we can't say social care is this, not to discredit your way, Daniel, but for me, it is everybody is a part of social care. Social care is a part of everybody in society. And that's really, for me, where it comes to. And as soon as we get that, and as soon as we understand that we all have mental health, good or bad or indifferent, and we are all a part of social care, whether we like it or not, whether we choose to be or not, whether we want to accept it or not because it's not cool or our friends are going to laugh at us for helping that little lady across the street or what have you, then the easier it will be for social care to evolve within society to become an everyday norm. I always do that bit where I say, if you've helped someone open the door and let them through into a shop or reach something down from a top shelf, you are part of social care. You've allowed that person to go through their day a little bit easier than they would have done had you not come over and helped. If you go over and don't help them, you're a negative part of social care because you've actually inhibited that person from having their normal sort of day. So it's a sort of, that's for me what it is. We'll always talk about people helping people in society, but not say about not helping people. And if you don't help people, you are inhibiting good social care. And that for me is it. It's not about being a good or a bad person. If you do not help that person across the street, if you do not let that person cross a zebra crossing, you do not open that door for someone, you are inhibiting good social care or responsive social care. And for me, that's just what it is.
I mean, this is so wide. So I always say about the in social care, we have the chance to lead the way. We have to reverse back into society and community. We often defer to our health colleagues, our people in acute healthcare, and I say actually we've got more. We have so much to share about people living than the lives that they can. No, even hospitals. This is what, when I talk to the head of a hospital, and I'm a governor at the Alder Hey Hospital in Liverpool, and what they realise now is they're a big building block of society and community, and that for me has been the big shift. Hospitals now realise they are one of the building blocks of community, which we all are, hopefully, and that for me has been a big change, and that's the culture change that we need to engender. I think that we're all contributing or discontributing, if you want to another way, to society and community. And if we can get it right in social care, that helping people to actually fulfill their lives, live as independently as possible, get out to the football or the theatre or do their own shopping or help them with their shopping, then we're actually creating a richer community society for you, for me, for everyone who's part of it. That universality of social care is where why I'm involved. That's my story.
Mark.
Oh, what was that, Adam?
I was talking to Mark around this before we went live, actually, and quite a lot of these topics. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Yep. Can hear you.
Oh, maybe my internet's a bit. No, I was talking to Mark about this before we went live on various different areas around social care, assisted dying, and all of that. And it does, and I'm reading some of the comments here. So we've got comments around making sure that allowing people to die without medical intervention to prolong life is different than assisting them to take their life. Obviously, a very controversial question the other day was, would assisted dying help the demand? And it reminds me of, and I don't know whether you've seen it, Daniel, Logan's Run with Michael York.
Yeah.
Have you seen the film where at the age of 30 you go into this sort of cylindrical dome and you get sucked up and you're annihilated, basically you're killed, they cull off society at the age of 30, and there's always that sort of really iconic bit at the end, isn't it, where he comes in and says, you don't have to die, no one has to die at 30, you could live and grow old. Live, I say, and it's it's really, really important that we don't allow ourselves to take something that is so important to people, to allow them, to empower them, to give them control over their lives and turn it into something that is beneficial for society. Because assisted dying should never be a question of, will this help the demand? It should never be a question of, will this benefit society in a positive way? The question should always be, will it benefit this person? Will it allow them to end their life in dignity? Is it a choice they want to make, and how do we support them? I think the minute we start thinking around assisted dying as a benefit and a tool to reduce the population, to thin it out and reduce the demand on social care, that's when we're getting it wrong. And there has to be a robust process in place for it. We can't just abuse it, if you will. But at the end of the day, the alternative for a lot of people out there, and I'm not making this political and I'm not trying to change people's minds, the alternative to that out there is taking your own life without the correct support, without the correct means, without the correct ways of doing it, and prolonging suffering and dying in a really undignified way, which is unfair. They should be able to choose their swan song. They should be able to check out when they want to check out. We just need to get that over to the population, that this is what it is. It's not, let's just cull society and get rid of people. It's not a case of, well, anyone can just go and kill themselves, because anyone can do that anyway. Anyone can take their own lives. What it is just providing a dignified end for people when they choose that to be their option. And we shouldn't stop people for that just because our views are different. Just like we shouldn't stop people's religions because our religions are different, or our atheism or our ideas and society are different. We should allow people to do what they want to do. And that is social care. Preventing them from doing that is bad social care.
I've always thought it's strange, and I understand it, why the pro-abortion movement is called pro-choice. Now, it's fairly sensible and reasonable. I understand why, but then what you're saying there is also you're being pro-choice, and so a lot of the arguments when you were making them there, I was actually equating to the discussion on abortion, people being actually in a way knowing what's best for them. So we have to trust people to know what's best for them, or help empower them and give them the tools to know what's best for them, or to decide what's best for them. I've been facing it with my mother, who's now 88, and actually it's been difficult because I'm trying to empower her to make decisions. It's been difficult because in some way she doesn't want to make decisions now. So in some way, I found myself being a bit more command and control than I would really like to be, and I feel I'm really compromised by that. But at some point, I had to make decisions, and so it really challenged me about. I've waited. No, it's her choice. It's her choice. It's her choice. Eventually, I had to make some decisions, and it really challenged me on that. So I don't know how that equates, but at some point, do people always want to be to give up control at some point? So what we're saying, I'm countering my own argument, we're saying about people in communities should have the chance to be in control of their own lives and destiny.
100%.
Want to be in charge? Or do you want mummy or daddy or the state to take over?
So I suppose this is the societal problem, and we don't, as a country, we are prudish. We don't talk about sex, and we don't talk about death. Those are the two things we don't talk about. People who have money talk about money. People who don't have money don't talk about money because it's not what they do. People don't talk about sex because we're prudish, and we don't talk about death because everyone's afraid, terribly afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid of death, and I'm not afraid to say that I'm afraid of it. But both me and my partner had a conversation the other day in the car because my granddad's unwell at the minute, receiving really excellent care in hospital, and he's got a lasting power of attorney in place. And both me and my partner looked at each other on the way to go and visit him and said, "We don't have children. Who's going to look after us? Who will make these decisions?" And he's not social care, so he doesn't understand that even if we got married, I would have no rights over his health or finances, and he would have no rights over mine. And we both sat there and said, right, before the year's through, we will have our lasting power of attorneys done, we will have our will done, we'll have our advanced care plans done, and we will make sure that at this moment in time, we have written down everything that we want to happen to us should we lose that ability to make those choices ourselves. I'm making that choice now, and I'm having that down on paper. Not enough people do that. Not enough people are brave enough to sit there and go, this is what I want to happen to me in the future, because we don't want to face up to it. And unfortunately, tomorrow never comes, and it's always too late. And there's so many people that I provide support for who waited too long to put those choices in place. And if we change that in society at a younger age and started educating people on that, even if it was made part of health insurance, I mean, crying out loud, if one of your questions on your health insurance was, do you have a lasting power of attorney, no matter what your age is? Do you have an advanced care plan, no matter what your age is? Your GP checkup.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and it's part of your premiums. I'm not saying that you get charged more for not having it. Potentially you do. But you go and visit your doctor, and your doctor says to you every single time you go and visit, any changes to your medical information, any changes to your personal information, do you have a lasting power of attorney, no matter what age you are? Because then it's always in our minds, and we need to start making those decisions. We also need to tell people not to go through a solicitor. You do it for 120 quid yourself. Don't pay solicitors thousands of pounds. Sorry, solicitors, but you don't need the money. Do your lasting power of attorney yourself. Go and get your doctor to sign it to make sure you've got your capacity. It's a lot cheaper. Don't use a solicitor. But until we do that in society, then yes, Daniel, we'll always be having this conversation around, do people always want to give up their choice? Because we don't know, because they've not made that decision themselves.
I think Paula's made an interesting point here. She does challenge that most people will do what is best for them, but they don't want to be a burden to others. So removing their belief that they are a burden is the most important. And Jenny's also put around, it'd be helpful if carers that were there in place too, which I fully agree. I think we definitely need to be making sure we've got our care staff in support before we actually need them, because I think all too often it's a reactionary measure as opposed to an assistive measure. And actually, you could prevent loneliness and so many other bits and pieces and social isolation by getting it in early. Go on, Daniel.
And I'm glad you explained what Jenny. I couldn't quite understand what Jenny was putting.
Well, I interpreted it. I put it back on the script. I interpreted it as it would help if you had carers already in place. So as opposed to social care being like a last resort when you've been in hospital and whatever.
Let's come back to this. It's really interesting. So just going back to where technology can help. What I'm really interested in, one of the things I'm really interested in, is sensor-based predictive technology. Whether people want it or not, because it's looking at people's lifestyles and actually predicting. And one of the things I've never done in the various conferences I've run, I've always tried to get a bit in there about predictive health and early detection of chronic disease. And it's never quite caught on in social care that actually the earlier we detect people's deterioration in whatever way will actually change the culture of the way we deal with people's care issues. And there's some. I was fired by this one woman who's now doing the studies at Manchester, who can actually smell Parkinson's, and it's the most amazing resource of people who can actually, the supersensory smells, can smell Parkinson's. We now have a lot on blood tests, for example. This will revolutionise care. It will be some of the issues that we'll have is how we take on board early detection of people's deterioration and propensity to chronic disease, chronic illness, which can actually change the way we can care and help them be part of society and community. So in a way, I am dealing with some of the issues and bringing them back together in social care. But whether people want that level, because that's a lot of potential intrusion into people's lives. And then you get onto the issue, well, if you've shown to have a propensity or be looking at early onset dementia or a propensity for MND or Parkinson's, how does that then affect your insurance? Now, that's a really interesting one, Mark. You brought in, Adam, about the about insurance there. And all these factors play into insurance because it's all about money in the end. The way society is structured, it's all about money.
And money doesn't exist.
There you go. Only in crypto.
Only in crypto. No, I think you're right. But again, it comes back to society again, Daniel, because early detection is absolutely fab. And we can invest all of our money into it and we can put all those systems in place. If we do not have a society, though, that is brave enough to face up to illness, early detection does not matter, because people will look in the mirror and go, oh, that mole's getting a little bit bigger. Oh, I'll go next week. Or my cough hasn't really gone yet, but I don't want to go because I'm afraid what it might be. Or, I've still got blood in my stools, but it'll be fine because I've probably just a hemorrhoid or I probably just wiped too hard and I'll go again next week.
I'm clear. I just had my bowel test done. I'm clear.
Absolutely fabulous. But until we get a population that is not afraid to go delving in and go to the GP to go and ask these problems, is it something wrong with me? Is it something serious? I need to know because I need to know early so we can deal with it. We are still getting late diagnoses because people are afraid to go. So in part, it's not having those early diagnoses, and in part, it's people afraid to actually go and face up to whatever it may be. It is what it is at the end of the day. Que sera, sera. If you've got cancer, you've got cancer. If you've got dementia, you've got dementia. You can't avoid it. What you can do is stand up to it and go, right, I think I might have this. I am going to go get checked out, and I am going to hope that I've caught it early enough that I can put either preventative measures in place, remedial measures in place, or measures in place to slow it down. And we just need to be a bit braver in doing that. But we need the support there to be able to do so. At the minute, we've got a GP system and an NHS system which is crumbling and collapsing, and it's a case of you finally got to go and see the GP, but you can only discuss one issue, and actually you've got three things that you need to talk to them about, and you go, right, which is my most pressing? The fact that I've got a mole that I think is wrong or toothache that I need antibiotics for, you're going to go for the antibiotics because that's a quick fix, and then the mole that you want to have looked slips away again. So we need more of a system that's there to support people to discuss their health needs and to empower them to discuss their health needs as much as we possibly can do.
But once you have Rishi not having doctors signing people off work, they'll have a lot more time to be able to discuss. It is a very interesting thing around health. I had 7 areas that I wanted to touch on tonight. And I'm looking at my other screen. We've touched on bits here and there, but we've filled the hour just on one bit, which was around demographic changes and the aging population. So I did want to dive into mental health. I really wanted to dive in with technology, Daniel, given your background. So we're definitely going to have to invite you back to do a a follow-up on it. I also really wanted to, and we touched on it very, very lightly, but around sustainability and what that looks like. I wanted to look at around what person-centered care, so much more that I wanted to explore, and I was very conscious of time, and it just
amazing
run away.
It's been an amazing base this for further discussion for people to take away. And hope I'm going to see you tomorrow at the care show, Mark. And I'll hope that people are having these real discussions, not just on technical bits, that we are actually getting to the nub of society and community and how it's got to change.
Yeah, no, definitely 100%. And I think if anybody's at the care show, day 2, I am chairing a session for Birdie on the Village of Care, which does look at some of the bits and pieces that we've spoken about tonight around actually that community and what that looks like. So I definitely think those conversations are happening. I think we just need to fast forward them so that we get there a lot sooner. So any final thoughts from either of you two at all?
I think in social care we can take a lead in society and community, and I really do think that we can show the way. That's why I'm involved in social care.
For me, it's just about waking up. We've got this term in society which is woke, and we use woke. Well, I say we. It's a collective we. Society, GB News, Piers Morgan, Jeremy Clarkson, they use woke as a negative, and they use woke as this idea that actually it's a bad thing to be woke. Woke is past tense. You are awake. To be woke means you are awake, and to be awake means you are aware of your surroundings. You are aware of things that are going on around you. You are aware of the differences and the nuances. There is nothing wrong in being awake. And this is what I talk about when I think around collective awakening within society. If we all just woke up a little bit and started questioning more and I'm not talking, your tinfoil hat propaganda, the earth's flat and all that jazz. I'm not talking about that, but we do muddle that up with people being awake and questioning more. There's nothing wrong in questioning, and there's nothing wrong in wising yourself up and learning about what is around you. Be woke, ask questions, just be nice. That's literally it. Just be nice. And if you do not open the door for someone, you have been an inhibitor to social care.
Be nice, and also be nice to yourself as well.
Yes. This morning, I got dressed this morning at 4, well, just before 4, because I had to set off at 4 to get to Leicester. And I'm always preaching, love and joy, and I'm losing weight and I'm being healthy. And I saw myself in the mirror when I was getting dressed, and I actually said, "Oh, you fat, look at you. You just look so fat this morning." And I was driving to work, and I was like, would I say that to somebody else? No, I wouldn't. Why have I said it to myself this morning? Positive affirmations on my way to work. It was a 4.5-hour drive this morning. Positive affirmations got my sort of morale back up and boosted me. But it's so easy to slip into that being hateful towards yourself. And it's not healthy, is it? Be nice to yourself. I love that, Daniel. Mark, final thoughts from you.
Well, I think you've both summed it up really well. I think there's definitely been so much food for thought tonight. I'm really excited to do a follow-up and talk about some of the other bits and pieces, because I think it also ignites things that you might not necessarily think about. Like when I'd made notes around like sustainability, about actually what do we teach our children about growing crops and vegetables and fruit? Because actually I know when I spent my childhood at my grandparents, that's what they taught me, but I don't do any of that. Well, I might grow some strawberries in a pot now, but I don't do anything near enough as what they did. But actually, we're losing skills that our ancestors once had, and how we then come about that, because I think we obviously are more aware due to social media of what's going into our food and various other bits and pieces. And I think like what you spoke around about being, we're definitely more aware of what's out there in society. I think TikTok's elevated that. But yeah, I don't think there's anything really to add on what you both said, really. I think it's been a really interesting conversation. And Daniel, I'm sorry we didn't quite make it to technology, but part 2, we'll make sure it's the first part.
We'll do it, yeah. Thank you.
You made me laugh then, Mark, when you were talking about growing stuff. And the only thing I grow is penicillin on the food in my fridge that I don't eat each week in and out. And I think to myself, society-wise and sustainability-wise, I am wasting so much food in and out. And I'm allergic to penicillin. I need to be really careful. Daniel, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. I'm glad we sorted out the gremlins, because this was a conversation that I thoroughly enjoyed. And I know I say this quite often, but actually Mark and I messaging in the background, have we done this? Have we done that? Over to you. And we both sat there and was like, this is a really good conversation. One that doesn't happen very often, and one that has happened without sort of pretense. It was candid and without the concern of offending anyone. We've been able to have a really open conversation, and one that I think we need to invite a few more people to. Very conscious that we are a white panel and a cisgendered male panel here, and I think next time we have this conversation, we need to open it up to more people. I don't think the conversation was going to go this way this evening, otherwise we would have done. But I think it's definitely important that we bring more voices into this, because it's one that needs to happen and needs to happen really, really regularly. Like Mark says, it's not a month or a day that we have to celebrate. You know, you don't get a dog just for Christmas. We don't have diversity just for October or whatever it is. So it's really important that we have this conversation regularly through blogs, through whatever. If you want to your opinions or your views on this, you want to get involved in this conversation, just get in touch with us at the Caring View, and we can, you know, give you that platform to have your say. Obviously, no hate speech, please. We promote love and joy and acceptance here at the Caring View, but we also promote diversity, inclusivity, and we want to hear all different views. Right. This has been the Caring View, the online health and social care chat show platform. Free resources for absolutely everybody. Please go to www.thecaringview.co.uk. If you've not already noticed, our sponsors have been ticking across the bottom of the page, but just to give you a quick recap, we have Prosperwell, UK's leading digital marketing agency. We have Care Business Associates training for all your health and social care needs. Care Show London, get down there tomorrow and Thursday, if I'm getting my days right. Go and see Mark, go and see Daniel. It's going to be a great show. And obviously, Attis Care by Attis Insurance Brokers, giving you your comprehensive care coverage and proactive risk management. Daniel, an absolute joy to have you this evening and to hear your views. My door's always open. My phone's always on. You know, you can always get in touch with me. We're here about preaching love. So please do just get in touch if you ever want to have a conversation about anything. Mark, thank you for doing everything at the Caring View. I am so busy at the minute. Mark just runs everything. He's just like, Adam, 7:30, be there, everything's sorted. So huge thank you, Mark, for making sure that we are still operating and running smoothly. And thank you everyone for listening and watching. You know, we do this for as long as there is a demand, and if there's a demand, we will do this. So thank you all so much. Please do take care. www.thecaringview.co.uk. Until then, we will see you next week. Mark will see you at the Care Show, London, but we will see you next week at 7:30, our usual time, YouTube, X, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Take care.
See you later. Thank you, Daniel.